Welcome, everybody, to Next Gen Leadership. I'm your host, Jimmy Ryan, and today we are joined with Gino Fronte. He's a regional manager with PRMG, and Sasha Stair, a CRO, fractional CRO. And today we're going to talk about something that I think is super relevant to this market. It's what is the value of an area manager? What is the value of a regional manager? And what's the value of a producing branch manager? What roles do they play, and do you really even need one? There's a big shift right now going to like broker. Why? Well, because there's not all these people that are taking some basis points, taking a piece of it. And I think it's super relevant because people are looking at their rates and looking at the rate sheets, and look, there's margin compression. My rate could be this or it could be that, and if it's that, I might win more deals. If it's this, well, then it becomes a little bit more challenging. So we're going to open this up with asking the question, Gino, is that, look, what's the value of a regional? What is the value of an area manager? What's the value of a producing manager, branch manager? And why would you say that they are either not necessary at all or necessary in this market?
Thanks, Jimmy. So I think let's try to take this in chunks, because all of what you just teed up, there's a long conversation. We could talk about it for hours. But let's take the word value. I think that's a really important word to focus on. And the value that any leader, manager brings to you as an individual is someone that makes you better at what you do. Right? Let's just start with that. That's someone that makes you better at what you do. So that person has to be a coach. That person has to be a therapist. That person needs to inspire you. And that person should be better at your job than you are. Okay. So I always tell myself in my role, I have to be the best loan officer on my team. No one can be better than me if I'm the one that has to solve all the problems. If my job is to solve problems and bring solutions and opportunities to our team, then I need to be the best. So I think it's important. Maybe this got lost over the years with area management and regional management, is they just became corporate positions. And look, there's a lot of things that I have to do that are not involved with the field, right? I got to manage P&Ls, costs, expenses. I got to run the business. That's right. My job is to run the mortgage business, but at the same time, got to be Don and I happen to be branch managing our home branch. We always manage our home branch. It's Valencia. It's what keeps us close to the ground. So even though we have a regional role and we have all these responsibilities that are regional, we're still in touch with loans every single day. And of course, Don and I, Don originated for 38 years and I did for over 20. We still have databases of people that call us. And I still love taking that first call with a consumer, but I'm not the best person to serve them. So I take those leads and I turn them over to our team. So one value proposition that Don and I do is we take our combined databases of 50 plus years and give those leads to our team when people call. So I would say that's one takeaway. One thing you could do if you're a non-producing manager is give leads to your team from your past database.
So it's not just about recruiting. And I think that's where a lot of area and regionals get into the trap of, I'm just going to recruit and fill the funnel. But what value, I think that's just key, is that what value do you provide? Are you a coach? Are you a mentor? Are you a therapist? And the truth is, now more than ever, you're exactly right. It is so important to play all those roles because people aren't getting in other places. I think that Ryan Grant talks about it, the mental health crisis that's going on. People are struggling hard. They need that. Therapist is not the best way to describe it. It's a coach, and it's somebody that's been here before. And I love how you say you need to be the best at it. And you didn't get this role handed to you. I mean, there's nobody left in the industry that had it handed to them at this point. Those people have been weeded out, and probably for, over a year at this point. But you have to be the best so that you can lead these people and that you can give back and provide real value. What's the value of a spoon deal? What's the value of that? I would say, especially in this market, more than ever, that's the most valuable thing. And how are you leveraging it? How are you growing it? And how are you taking that first phone call and giving that handoff? I think that's scream from the rooftops.
Yeah, I mean, look, you also kind of touched on the reality of the matter. And I've been talking about this for 3 years now, before the total meltdown of our industry this last couple of years. We had entered early phases in 2021, 2022 of what I called model wars. Right. And it was the first time in 20 years, or no, I lie. Yeah, well, 20 years, since 2004, 2005, where the broker
Right.
reigned supreme, right? Broker reigned supreme. They had the mass lion's share, and then they lost that with the meltdown in 2007 through 10. And then now you had the resurgence of the mortgage broker. And what's interesting to me is that I feel like brokering is wonderful for the right person. Right? So if you are a master structurer and you're only looking to do three deals a month, 2 to 3 deals a month, you're badass at what you do, and you're maybe kind of on the back end of your career too, where you're like, I just want to do a couple loans. I don't want to stress myself out too much. I'm not going to go to open houses and knock on doors. I'm not going to go do that shit. I'm just going to cruise in with my database. Brokering's fantastic. You probably don't need anybody, and then you can make the extra few dollars yourself, right? But if you're younger in your career, or if you have aspirations to scale, I mean, it's just not a scalable model. You're submitting to 26 different banks, all different underwriters, all different people. You never build relationships. The minute you build a relationship with an AE, they change companies and you've got to shift with them. Pricing comes in and out from different people. So you got to switch from bank to bank to bank to bank all the time. It's just not scalable because it takes way too much labor to do each deal. But if you're doing 2 deals, it's okay. He's trying to do 20 deals a month as a broker is suicide. It's hard.
I want to go back to the leadership concept with coaching. Generally speaking, from what you've seen, how often does an area manager come in and have those skills already?
I think area managers are still pretty good. I think sometimes regional is the one that starts to get a little more detached and starts to
close to the ground.
Starts to kind of focus more on the recruiting piece.
Yep.
I think that's where the distraction, like Jimmy brought up, the distraction of recruiting, because and this is a really great conversation starter. It's how do you balance your responsibilities?
Sure.
Right. My corporate responsibilities versus my responsibilities to my team. And retention, to me, is more important than recruiting.
Right.
And so we probably do it backwards, because we're retain first, recruit second. Right? Because it takes too much energy to recruit.
And it's expensive.
But it's also just not. I don't even like the word recruit. The way I look at it, I have friends in the industry. And someday if one of my friends is unhappy, I hope they call me.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I look at it. I don't dial 50 people a day. I don't text 20 people a day. That's just not what I do.
You probably could. You probably could.
Of course we could. Of course, we know thousands of loan officers.
Right.
But we want relationships to be organic. We want people to say, hey, tell me more about what you do. But going back to that, Sasha, just for a minute, balance of responsibilities is one of the things that everyone struggles with. So the loan officer struggles with work-life balance at home usually. And we all have that struggle, right? Regardless of your position, everybody has a work-life balance problem. And then for area managers and regional managers, there's a lot of fiscal responsibility that comes with that role. And so how do you balance that? You want your loan officer to win. You want to keep your processing team, manufacturing team employed, and you got to turn a profit for the company.
Right.
In this market, maybe you just need to break even. You might not even need to turn a profit. This is a little sad, but you could celebrate breaking even right now. It's not a bad thing. Like if you break even in this market, in summer, you should be turning some profits, but this is more like the last time I saw a market like this was like 2012. And then maybe for a minute in 2018.
Right.
So people that had the experience or been in the business long enough haven't seen markets like this, and
Right.
so they struggle with it. For me, I'm more like, oh man, again. It still sucks.
How do you coach those regional and area managers through that? Both the emotional, how am I going to coach the coach, but then also the fiscal responsibility. I think we were talking earlier before we hopped on this call that my first boss in this industry told me if I ever wanted to run a company, I better manage my own personal finance as well. Because if you can't manage your own personal finance as well, you're never going to manage a company's finance as well.
It's
So
just
that
like
was that stuck with me,
it's the
right?
same thing I tell a real estate agent. I'm like, you rent and you're telling people to buy houses? Like, it's almost disingenuous. Like, it's like
Right.
there's a disconnect between what you do. So you touched on a really good point. People talk a lot about authenticity. And along with that word, when you're thinking of authenticity, I think the other word that goes with it that's long time left behind is congruency.
Mm.
Are you congruent in your actions? You have to be authentic, but that's also, you got to be congruent. So like somebody told me, and they were just honest with me. They were like, you should probably lose weight. And I was like, well, that's an odd thing to tell somebody. And he goes, you're this like hyper successful person. You lead all these people, you do all this stuff, and then you look kind of like slobby. I was like, oh, wow, thanks. Well, shit, but that was impactful. I needed to hear that. And
I hope he was fit or she was fit.
Yeah, they were fit. And
Okay.
they said,
when you're talking about being congruent, you better be fit if you're going to call someone out on it.
Right. But that's what they were saying. They were like, it just doesn't make sense. Like you're not in alignment.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
I think that in order to be able to coach people, and I said you have to be your best, in order to be able to coach people and lead people, you have to be good with yourself. And you just said that, Sasha, same thing. You said it financially, but I think, and you mentioned, Jimmy, the mental health issues right now. It's hard. It's hard. The answer is it's hard. There is no one answer. And the answer is it's probably not a top-down thing. It's a community thing. In fact, that's why we built this community.
I love that.
It takes a village to make it through right now. I have bad days too.
Right.
And I reach out to Don and he makes me feel better. Or I reach out to corporate and somebody at corporate feels better. Or I can reach out to you guys and you guys make me feel better. So it's just have a network of people that are your coaches, co-coaches, people that get you through life. They don't have to wear the title coach. My kids are coaches. I learned from my kids. It reminds me of Craig Davis, who's a big member of the Momentum Builder family, who used to be my boss at Finance of America, right? He was my regional. And, I see him doing all this coaching work and everything now, which is wonderful. It's his passion. It's what he was good at. But he was always focused on just a few people. Now he gets to share that with everybody. And when he interviewed Simon Sinek towards the end of COVID, he did a beautiful interview with Simon Sinek. If you haven't seen it, go to LinkedIn and find it on Craig's page. It's
actually didn't know that.
Awesome. And Simon, I'm not a fan of Simon Sinek. I'm just going to be honest. I don't like him. It's kind of weird. But he said something that really stuck with me, right? So even someone that you don't necessarily feel great about can still impact your life. Mm-hmm. And so he says that he learned along the way that there is not mentor-mentee relationships, but the best relationships are mentor-mentor relationships, where both people learn from the relationship and both people improve. And so I think that's the basis of how you can make area managers better, regional managers better, teams better, right? Is community and give each other constructive feedback to elevate, right? The rising tide lifts all boats.
Yep.
I think that's what it takes right now. Like, you're not going to do it alone. You can't fight this market alone. You got to do it in team.
Yeah.
And look, iron sharpens iron, sharpen the saw. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You do have to do that, and you have to call people out for being fat.
I guess so. I mean, look, I have right now. I think we have like 25. No, I think we have like 25 loan officers, and some allow me to be tougher with them. I know you wanted to ask about one-on-ones. Some allow them to be tougher. Allow me to be tougher on them because that's the approach I need. Some of them need to be told you're not good enough and you need to get better.
Right.
And other ones need their arm around them and you need to support them and slowly elevate them. So I think that empathy
Yes.
for the situation of the person you're trying to help, regardless of what it is probably the most important quality you could possibly have as a leader right now.
And what
I
you're
agree.
referring to is situational leadership, right? Meet the person where they're at, give them what they need. And sometimes that might change. They might need tough love right now. And then in a year from now, it could be more of that nurture, right?
Yeah. And I think that I want people to be hard on themselves too.
Sure.
So I'm not trying to be hard on them myself. I try to stimulate thought process.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, you said you wanted to do 100 million, but you're not doing the activities that you need to do 100 million. Have you thought about that? If something like that, not, dude, you're not making enough calls. So
Right.
Approach, right? Content and approach are two different things. Don loves to say, good content, bad delivery.
Right.
I'm the bad delivery guy. He's super smooth, you know?
Well, but it goes into, it really does go into everything. It's like weight loss or just being physically fit in general. Hey, you said that you were going to get into shape this year. I don't see you with any of the results. And Gino, like, I applaud you. You've lost however many pounds. You haven't drank a drop of alcohol. You're having non-alcoholic beers, and that requires a high level of discipline. I mean, it's, and I'm not just saying like being abstaining from alcohol. I'm saying the full package. If you're going to be physically fit, it means that you got to eat right. It means that you got to abstain from alcohol. It means that you got to exercise. It means that you have to do all these things, and the results are being shown in you. And in the same way, when it comes down to business, is that your results are reflected in a P&L. Your results are reflected in what in what the profitability is. And if break even's a celebration, let's celebrate it. We're not losing money, but I think that's reflected in it. I want to pivot back to retention is greater than recruitment. I think that is something that just I want to cut that clip up because it is so understated. It is not focused on. Retention is greater than recruitment. Why? Yes, recruitment costs lots of money. Yes, you have to onboard people. It takes a ton of time to get people up to speed. But retention is not just a regional area branch manager to loan officer relationship. It's also how do we retain our realtor referral partners? How do we retain our financial planners? Are you just calling 50 people and trying to get a deal or two out of them? Or do you have a real relationship? And I haven't originated in a year, over a year, and I still have people calling me, real estate agents calling me, asking me what's up. Like, and I'm calling them too. I want to know, we're friends. And I think it's deeper than that. So I speak a little bit more about this, Don, because I think people become so transactional and so bottom line focused. We need to get 5 more recruits. Well, how about you keep the 5 you have, and how about you keep them happy, and maybe you just incrementally keep them more with you. Talk about retention versus recruitment.
Yeah, I mean, look, people don't leave. You've heard this. People don't leave companies; they leave people.
Yes.
And so we need to look in the mirror and say, if someone left, it's not because of our rates. It's not because we closed the loan late. It's because they didn't trust that I could make them better. So they lost trust in the system, whether it's, and in the individuals that are leading them. So for me, if I can't do a good enough job to keep the people I have no business going to get new ones.
Yes.
To me, it's that simple, right? Like, if someone leaves, I've got to question myself and say, why did they leave? What mistakes did I make? What could I do better? And I won't do it again. Now I can go get another person because I've reflected on that flaw, and I know that it won't happen to the next person that I bring onto the team.
Accountability. It comes down to transparency and accountability. In your case, in the case of a producing branch manager, non-producing branch manager, regional area, it's just like your weight. It's just like your physical fitness. You can see it. you can see it on you. You can see it by, hey, do you have 5 brand new people and all of the 5 other people left? Why'd they leave? Well, maybe it's the systems and processes, but the systems and processes is a reflection of you, the leadership. And
Right.
are you having one-on-ones? Are you actually having the opportunity to be empathetic to their position, because you're actually talking to them? You're not just recruiting somebody, getting them in the hopper, and then collecting a check. I mean, it comes down to that. And do we have to be transactional? Do we have to turn a profit? Do we have to look at a P&L and actually analyze what we're spending money on? Yes, but you don't have that opportunity if you lose all of your people. You don't have that opportunity. And we're wrapping up, but I want to.
I do want to touch on one thing, and we
I want. I want to target it though. I want to target it on how are you in your one-on-ones with your team? How are you showing that you want to retain them? How are you showing that with actionable steps to somebody that is a branch manager or area regional, whatever it is, you're in a leadership role, trying to retain? How do you actually retain people?
Start, stop, keep. Walk into somebody's office, and I don't set one-on-ones like monthly meetings or anything. I do it when I come to the office. Right. When I come to the days that I come to the office, my job is not to answer email. My job is not to be on Zoom. The days that I come to the office, it's to have one-on-ones with every one of the loan officers. And it's basically like, how's it going? Right. Get a read. Because if you don't know where they're at, like you said, Sasha, if you don't know where they're at, how do you meet them there? So get a read. Are they frustrated? Are they happy? Are they on fire? Are they motivated? Where are they at? Get that read. And then to say, okay, well, that sounds great. What do we need to stop doing? What do we need to start doing? What do we need to keep doing? And then how can I help you do that? Right. So these are the tasks that you need to do, but how can I help you with that? And so whether it's with technology, or somebody else might need social media help, and somebody else might need loan structuring assistance. Everybody has different needs. It's our job to be the chameleon, identify those needs, solve for them, and reduce their anxiety. This is a very anxiety driven business. If I reduce your anxiety, you will perform better every single time.
Gino, I want to double down on the first thing you said. How are you doing? I talk a lot about taking your emotional and energetic temperature every day as an individual, right? Like how am I feeling emotionally? How am I feeling energetically? But I think a lot of leaders, managers, ask that question as like a checkbox. And they're not actually they mean to be asking it, and they care, but they're so distracted because there's so much going on and there's so many pressures hitting them that they forget in a moment, in a one-on-one, it's your turn to be present for that other person. You got to shut the peanut gallery off, all the noise, everything outside, and truly show up, be congruent, right? Show up and be there for that person. And when you ask, you have to have the aptitude, the mindset, the desire, and the skills to be able to read through the lines, because somebody might not be very clear in how they are feeling, right?
Yeah,
I just think that's such a critical piece of the puzzle for a good manager.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to empathy to some extent. And I think that the modern leader, which is kind of what we're talking about today, really needs to be a good people person. They need to have a higher EQ than they need to have a higher IQ.
Yeah.
I think that today's leadership skills, today's, authenticity requests by the, younger generations, and ourselves included, we don't want to be sold anything. Nobody wants to be sold anything. And when you ask, you're right. You should be genuine in that, because you might ask and they might say, my aunt just got cancer. Right. That might be what they're dealing with. It may not have anything to do with whether they have enough business or not. So be human first.
Yeah.
Don't be a robot.
Actually care. When you ask, you show that you do care. And when you spend time with people, you show them that you care. You are retaining people. You're not just going on to the next person. You're not checking a box to say, I asked. No, I actually cared. And I think that that's something that the best in the business right now, they show that, and they show that every day. Retention's greater than recruitment. Balance your responsibility. Know what your value is. Give it. Be a coach. Be a therapist. You got to do all the things, especially in this environment. And if you do these things, you will retain. And guess what? You'll attract. And recruitment is easy. I want to wrap this up. We're at 25 minutes. We try to keep this at 20, so it means 25 for the three of us. My goodness. But I want to thank everybody for joining us, and join us. We do this weekly. This is Next Gen Leadership. This is for people that lead, want to lead, or want to lead better. And I want to thank Sasha for joining us. We love your pizzazz. Gino for your expertise. And we want to thank everybody for watching.
All right. You guys have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
See you guys.
See you next week.
Bye.